Government leaders have abandoned the capital and are now hiding in exile. Information out of occupied Athens has been sporadic, but Soviet forces are indeed in control of the capital as well as much of the outlying territories in Greece. In the city, fighting among Allied and Soviet troops continues, but the Allied death toll is rising rapidly. Now it remains to be seen if Allied forces will be able to weather this onslaught intact. Reacting to this latest assault, Allied diplomats led the United Nations in a 281-7 vote that, in approving a unique military funding initiative aimed at increasing global Allied support. This proposal calls for the formation of a global defense agency to be temporarily established in an as yet unnamed European capital. Indeed, in control of the capital as well as much of the outlying.
Sounds bad, does it not? Well, it is. But Stalin has just written his obituary. At last, this will help us galvanize the rest of the world against him. Yes, we have lost Greece, but we are not out just yet. Stalin may think so, but if we can continue to counsel the talents of commanders like yourself, we will come through this war on top. My old friend... One of Tanya's men. She found something. But Russian security agents have captured her. They will almost certainly take her back to Moscow. We must get her back. She has vital information on the Iron Curtain project. That information could help tip the scales in our favor. Let him clear his head. In this state, he is of no use to us. The Soviets currently hold Tanya near Grodno. The prison is well guarded, but a supply truck from a nearby Soviet base runs through the facility several times a day. If your spies can infiltrate the war factory, they may be able to hitch a ride into the prison compound. Once you have found Tanya, get her out of there any way you can.
Ooh. Oh. Such a pretty face. Where is Professor Einstein? I was hoping you'd say that. I'm afraid the effects are quite permanent.
Reinforcements have arrived. Timer started. 30
Commander,
minutes
for king and
remaining.
country. For king and country. On my way. For king and country. On my way. For king and country. On my way. For king and country. Indeed. Indeed. For king and country. Indeed. For king and country. On my way. For king and country. On my way. On my way. Yes, sir. Indeed. On my way. Indeed. On my way. On my way. On my way. For king and country. Indeed. Indeed.
Building infiltrated. Building infiltrated.
What's up?
Tanya
Let's rock.
freed.
I'm there. Chew on this. Let's rock. Let's rock. Chew on this. Cha-ching. Cha-ching. Chew on this. Let's rock. I'm there. I'm there. I'm there. I'm there. I'm there. Let's rock! Let's rock! I'm there! I'm there!
Reinforcements have arrived.
Let's rock! Let's rock! Let's rock!
Tanya rescued. Allied reinforcements have arrived from the north.
Yes, sir.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Reporting. Affirmative.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Vehicle affirmative. Engineering. Awaiting orders. Vehicle affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit
Affirmative.
lost.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Engineering. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged. Yes, affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
New construction options. Building. Repair.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Engineering. Affirmative. Awaiting orders.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete. New construction options. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative.
New construction options. Training.
Acknowledged. At once. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Base
Affirmative.
is under attack. Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir.
Affirmative. Awaiting
Yes,
orders.
sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes,
Unit
sir.
lost.
Affirmative. Vehicle
Yes, sir.
reporting.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Acknowledged.
Construction complete. Cannot deploy
Yes,
here.
affirmative.
New construction
Affirmative.
options.
Waiting orders.
Unit lost.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building. Unable to comply. Building in progress. On hold.
Reporting.
Cancel.
Waiting order.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Unable to comply.
Affirmative.
Building in progress. Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Construction complete. New construction options.
Yes, sir.
Low
Acknowledged.
power.
Reporting.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Repairing. On hold. Cancel.
Waiting order.
Building.
Yes, affirmative.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building. Unable to comply. Building in progress. Construction complete. Building. Unit repaired.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction complete.
Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Our base is under attack.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Reporting.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Waiting orders. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Unable to
Acknowledged.
comply.
Yes, sir.
Building in
Acknowledged.
progress.
Engineering. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
New
Acknowledged.
construction options. Construction
Acknowledged.
complete. Unit
Awaiting
ready.
order. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative.
Unable to comply. Building in progress. Building. Repairing. Repairing. Construction complete. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Reporting.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete.
Reporting. Acknowledged.
Building. On hold. Cancel. Building.
Yes, sir.
Construction complete.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building. Unit ready.
Awaiting order.
Okay.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit prepared.
Awaiting
Building.
acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Our base is under
Affirmative.
attack.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Vehicle. Now affirmative.
Vehicle acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Construction complete.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Prepare.
Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Awaiting order. Acknowledged.
Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Awaiting order.
Prepare.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Now affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Vehicle. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Prepare.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Vehicle
Unit
reporting.
prepared.
Reporting. Affirmative.
Vehicle. Reporting.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Repairing. New construction options. Building. Construction complete. Repairing.
Yes, sir.
Unit repaired.
Vehicle reporting. Acknowledge. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building. Our base is under attack.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Construction complete. Building.
Yes, sir. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Construction
Reporting.
complete.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Waiting order. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Waiting orders. Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Building.
Yes, sir.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledge. Affirmative. Acknowledge.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building. Unit repaired.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Awaiting order. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Building.
Vehicle reporting.
Unit
Awaiting
repaired.
orders.
Yes, sir.
Construction
Yes, sir.
complete.
Acknowledged.
Repairing. Repairing. Unit
Yes, sir.
ready.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir.
Repairing.
Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
repaired.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged.
Unit repaired.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready. Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Waiting order. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
lost.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building. Unable to comply. Building in progress. New construction options. Building. Unable to
Reporting.
comply. Building
Affirmative.
in progress.
Waiting orders.
Construction
Affirmative.
complete. Unit lost. Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir.
Construction
Acknowledged.
complete. Repair.
Reporting. Affirmative. Vehicle reporting. Vehicle reporting. Affirmative.
Repairing. Unit ready. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit repaired. Repairing.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit
Acknowledged.
repaired.
Affirmative.
Our base is under attack.
Affirmative.
Unit repaired.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Construction
Affirmative.
complete.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit repaired.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Cannot deploy here.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting.
Building.
Affirmative. Reporting. Affirmative. Awaiting orders. Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit
Affirmative.
ready.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit lost.
Vehicle reporting.
Building.
Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Reporting. Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Awaiting orders. Acknowledged. Yes, sir.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Vehicle acknowledged.
Building. Repairing.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Vehicle acknowledged. Affirmative.
Repairing.
Affirmative.
Unit
Acknowledged.
ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit repaired. Repairing.
Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit repaired.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative. Affirmative.
Unit repaired.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. 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 Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Awaiting orders. Reporting. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Vehicle affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged. Awaiting orders. Affirmative. Yes, sir. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Reporting. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Building.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Acknowledged. Vehicle reporting. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. 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 Acknowledged.
Awaiting orders.
Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Acknowledged.
Unit ready.
Affirmative.
Building.
Acknowledged. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative.
Unit ready. Building.
Awaiting orders. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Vehicle reporting. Yes, sir.
Unit ready.
Reporting.
Construction complete. Building.
Yes, sir. Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Awaiting affirmative.
Building.
Affirmative. Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Construction complete.
Affirmative.
Unit ready.
Vehicle reporting. Affirmative. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Yes, sir. Acknowledged.
Reporting. Acknowledged. Affirmative. Affirmative. Acknowledged.
Mission accomplished.
So very pretty, but oh so stubborn.